Europe's top rights court has ruled that Switzerland did not do enough to tackle climate change. It's the first time that the European Court of Human Rights has ruled against a state on the issue. Three separate cases have been brought by a Swiss association of older women, 6 Portuguese youths and a former French mayor. The European Court of Human Rights ruled in favour of the group of Swiss elder women who argued that the inadequacy of their government to combat climate change had put them at risk of dying during heat waves. The Swiss government says it will analyse the ruling. The court agreed that the Swiss government had violated some human rights by missing past targets on emission reductions.
In the present case, the court finds that there were some critical lacunae in the Swiss authorities' process of putting in place the relevant domestic regulatory framework. This included a failure to quantify, through a carbon budget or otherwise, national greenhouse gas emissions limitations.
However, the Strasbourg-based court threw out the other 2 cases, the first brought by the Portuguese youths against 32 European governments and the other by a former French mayor against the French government. Both argue that European governments had failed to tackle climate change quickly enough, violating their rights. The ruling cannot be appealed, but the claim may be referred back to a national court. For more, Ishan Garg joins us live from Brussels. Ishan, what does this verdict mean for Switzerland, and could it have an impact on other European countries?
Well, for Switzerland, it certainly means that there has to be some sort of course correction on essentially 2 fronts. First of which is going to be, of course, Switzerland having to take a look at how it's going to set up regulatory frameworks that we just heard about to ensure that it's not only cutting emissions, but it's also putting in place frameworks that allow it to essentially find out by how much greenhouse emission targets are being breached. So that's going to be the first thing. And secondly, what the court has observed is that these group of elderly women did not have proper recourse to justice in their home country, and which is why they had to come to this European court. And that's something that the Switzerland government will also have to take a look at. While interacting with the media, the Swiss representative to the court said that Switzerland is going to have to take measures, and it has the obligation to do so, but it will need time to examine which parts and which measures will have to be proposed. So Switzerland is now perhaps going to work on a roadmap up ahead, but it does say that it's going to take some time to ensure and to comply with the court's ruling.
All right, one thing we mentioned, the court saying that the Swiss government had violated some human rights by missing target emissions, or emissions targets rather. Now, if climate campaigners can hold governments to emission targets, it does empower them, does there not? Are there other areas in which climate campaigners might be empowered by a ruling of this nature?
Well, that's certainly likely going to be the case, because for many climate campaigners, even the 2 parties whose cases were denied by the court, this is coming as a collective victory, because this verdict gives way to the possibility of different national governments being sued by citizens when citizens can claim that their lives have been impacted by poor climate change policies. And this is the first time an international court has done that. And secondly, it sets the precedent not only for other international courts to perhaps follow suit in the same direction down the line, but also for other national courts, many of which are considering similar cases around the globe. So that's going to be a huge win for climate campaigners. And some of the campaigners had said that particularly in Europe, because of this verdict against the Swiss government, there might be similar cases cropping up in various national courts across the continent, which would mean that this is going to have a trickle-down impact in particular, and perhaps even a dominoes effect on other countries inside the European continent.
Thanks to Ishan Garg reporting live from Brussels.